Before you hear this story, let me warn you gently. What you're about to uncover is one of the darkest truths hidden beneath the shining marble of ancient Rome. A truth most history books whisper about only in footnotes. A truth the empire itself tried to bury under sand, stone, and spectacle. It begins not with the roar of gladiators, but with the silence of those who had no voice, and the cold machinery of a system built to break human beings. And once you see how deep this darkness runs, you will never look at the Colosseum the same way again. For centuries, people have imagined Rome's arenas as places of glory, heroism, iron clashes, and sand-stained red. But beneath those stands, under those cheering crowds, under the very feet of emperors, something else lived. Something carefully designed, brutally efficient, and disturbingly ordinary to the Roman mind. It was not chaos. It was not a hidden crime. It was a system, managed, recorded, staffed, supplied, scheduled. A system that turned conquered women into rewards, into property, into trophies of war. Modern historians now call it Victoria Carnales, the carnal victory. But in Rome, it needed no name at all. Because everyone already understood how the empire worked. Imagine the moment a Roman army crushed a defiant city. Smoke rising. Shields clashing. The last resistance falling to the ground. The men who survived were chained or executed. The children were sorted like livestock. And the women, terrified, exhausted, carrying the last shreds of their identity, were seized, branded as res, a word that simply meant a thing. A possession. A resource. Something to be used and distributed just like grain or wine or metal. Property of the state. And from that moment on, the machinery began. Those women were transported, often across entire provinces, to the nearest major arena. Not for display. Not for trade. But for something much darker. Because the Roman state had created a system in which female captives became official rewards for gladiators. Not unofficially. Not secretly. Officially. Tracked by scribes. Assigned by administrators. Managed with the same calm, emotionless paperwork that controlled taxes and roads. And beneath the Colosseum, the proof still rests in stone. Archaeologists found chambers carved into the substructure, small, thick-walled rooms with locking doors, iron rings anchored deep into stone, and layouts that served no military or storage purpose. Rooms too narrow for animals, too structured for supplies, too deliberately designed for anything except confinement. Rooms positioned near the gladiator barracks and the service corridors where slaves moved unseen. Rooms that match descriptions left by Roman writers like Martial and Juvenal, who mentioned women held for the pleasure of champions, and joked bitterly about Rome rewarding violence with flesh. It is one thing to read the words. It is another to stand in those rooms, to feel the chill in the air, to imagine the silence broken only by muffled echoes from the arena above. Every doorway, every ring in the wall, every thick stone block tells the same story. This was not improvisation. This was architecture. A plan. A system Rome intended to run for centuries. And it did. But before we dive deeper, if you love discovering hidden truths like this, if you want ancient history that doesn't sanitize the past but reveals it, make sure you subscribe. It helps this channel bring more forgotten stories back to the light. And trust me, what's coming next is something you will want to be here for. Now, picture a gladiator after a victory. The crowd roars, chanting his name, waving strips of cloth, tossing wreaths onto the sand. The editor of the games, the official responsible, steps forward. But glory wasn't the only prize. In many cases, victorious fighters were taken below the arena where administrators recorded their reward. And the reward was a person. A woman taken from a conquered land, her identity erased, her fate sealed by the same bureaucracy that ran Rome's aqueducts and legions. This was not done in secret corners. This was policy.
Rome understood psychology.
They knew that giving fighters absolute power over another human being fed ego, loyalty, and violence. It kept men savage. It kept them grateful. And it kept them ready to die for spectacle. For the state, this was not cruelty for cruelty's sake. It was strategy. But the most chilling part is not that this happened, it is how normal it was. The men handing out assignments saw it as routine. The scribes updating scrolls saw it as duty. The crowds above never questioned what happened beneath their feet. In Roman culture, conquered people, especially women, existed outside the circle of moral concern. They were spoils. And spoils were meant to be used. For the empire, sexual violence was more than exploitation. It was a theater of dominance. A message to every defeated population: this is what happens when you resist Rome. Your sons will fall in battle, your leaders will be paraded in chains, and your women will be taken into the bowels of our amphitheaters, given away as prizes to the men whose blades conquered you. Roman power did not stop at your borders. It did not stop at your city walls. It reached into your homes, your families, your bodies. That was the real weapon of the empire. As time passed, this system spread across regions: Gaul, Greece, North Africa, Judea. Wherever Rome conquered, the captives followed the same route: processing centers, auctions, redistribution, and for some, the arena's underbelly. Some amphitheaters even included built-in holding cells with drainage channels and ventilation slits, designed not for prisoners awaiting execution, but for women whose lives now rotated around the schedule of the games. And through it all, Rome never flinched. They wrote poems about it. Satirists mocked it. Officials joked about gladiators being paid in pleasure rather than coin. The empire had normalized something so horrifying that later historians struggled to understand how a society so advanced in engineering and law could be so cold. The secret lies in the Roman mind. Order mattered more than morality. Stability mattered more than empathy. And the state believed that power must be visible, unquestionable, absolute. And what demonstrates absolute power better than owning the fate of the people you conquered? If you've stayed with me this far, you're exactly the kind of viewer I make these stories for. And if you want more hidden history, more truths carved in stone but forgotten in memory, consider subscribing. We go deeper than textbooks dare. Now, let us go to the final chapter of this system's life. For generations, Rome fed its games with blood and shame. Gladiators became icons, adored by citizens and feared by enemies. Captive women became silent currency passed down through the layers of the arena's dark economy. And the system known as Victoria Carnales continued, quietly, efficiently, relentlessly, until Rome collapsed. It is almost poetic that the system did not end because of moral awakening, reform, or outrage. It ended because Rome lost the one thing it could never replace: conquered people. When the borders crumbled, when legions fell, when the empire fractured, the supply lines dried up. No more defeated towns. No more parades of captives. No more streams of women taken from distant lands and processed into a system designed for cruelty. The empire that once dominated the world could not even feed its own machinery anymore. The arenas went silent. The training schools emptied. The underground chambers darkened. The iron rings rusted. And the women, those whose names we will never know, became shadows in history, remembered only by the cold stones beneath the Colosseum and the writings of men who saw it all as normal. But today, we can look back with clarity. We can understand that beneath the grandeur of Rome, beneath its philosophy and architecture, beneath the legends of Caesar and the beauty of its mosaics, lay a darkness built into the very foundation of the empire. A system so structured, so deliberate, so deeply rooted that it reveals something crucial: Rome did not rule through glory. Rome ruled through fear. through domination, through the absolute control of the human body. And that is why this story matters. Because every empire, no matter how magnificent, leaves two histories, the one it celebrates, and the one it hides. If you're still here, thank you for listening to a chapter of history most people never hear. And if you want more stories like this, stories that challenge what we think we know about the ancient world, I invite you to join this community. There are many more secrets waiting. For now, remember this: the Colosseum is not just a monument to entertainment or engineering. It is a graveyard of forgotten lives. And the stones beneath it still whisper the truth, if you dare to listen. Until next time, keep your eyes open, keep your curiosity alive, and never stop searching for the hidden stories buried in our past.